USCHO.com.
Welcome to USCHO Spotlight for Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023. Each week we talk with a coach, player, administrator, or journalist about college hockey. This podcast is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 6th and 8th at Amalie Arena in Tampa. Secure your seats at ncaa.com/mfrozen4. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. One of the conferences that has already gotten a regular season champion is the Big Ten.
And joining us now on this week's USCHO Spotlight, he covers the Golden Gophers for the Rink Live and a good friend of the program, Jess Myers. Jess, I'm going to jump right into it because the Gophers, they made quick work of things in the Big Ten. They clinched things with more than a week to play. Obviously, they have been the team that stands out in this league this year. What do you like about the way you're seeing this team play right now?
This is just, I don't want to call it a dream team, but they've got all the elements that you need. They've got very capable goaltending in Justin Close. The knock on him is that he's not big enough. He can't get post to post well enough. Well, with the defensive core they've had, people say that doesn't matter, but it does matter because Justin Close is a very good goalie. In front of him, you've got three very, very talented, NHL caliber defensemen in Ryan Johnson, Brock Faber, and Jackson Lacombe. I think all of them could step right into NHL roles. In fact, I've joked with people, Brock Faber is having such a great season for them. Although, he's missed the last two games with an injury. He's hopefully getting back into the lineup, but he's a Minnesota Wild draft pick. And I joke that, if you live in Minnesota and you cheer for the Bulldogs or you cheer for the Huskies or you cheer for the Mavericks, you're wanting the Gophers to get beat as soon as possible because you want Brock Faber in a Wild uniform as soon as he can muster that. So nice defensive core. And then up top, I don't think I'm being exaggerating about this. They have one of the best lines, if not in Gopher hockey history, maybe in college hockey history. That top line they've put together with Matthew Nyes and Jimmy Snuggerud and then Logan Cooley in between them has been just phenomenal. You saw it again last weekend at Penn State. When you need guys to take over a game, those are the three guys to do it. There were a little bit of growing pains with Logan Cooley, getting used to the pace of college hockey, getting used to the physicality of college hockey. He's used to that now. And man, is that line fun to watch. I told some people, not since maybe Phil Kessel played for the Gophers, do you see crowds reflexively just kind of come to their feet when those three guys come on the ice? Because just this cool, fun anticipation that something's going to happen, something fun.
I think the last time we had a line that everybody remembered like that was probably that CBS line at North Dakota. And you've been around for that. You remember them and them taking their team to the national title. How comparative do you feel it is between that line and what the Gophers have?
Well, Bob Motzko likes to preach about that you win with your seniors. Well, you've got a sophomore in Nyes, along with two freshmen in Cooley and Snuggerud. That to me is the big difference is these guys are so young. And, are still, like I say, kind of getting used to college hockey. In the first half of the season, Logan Cooley took a pair of major penalties, which is uncharacteristic for him. But you saw a little bit of kind of frustration creeping into his game because he wasn't maybe used to the level of attention he was getting, negative attention at that. And once that part of it got figured out, these guys have been just amazing to watch. Nyes plays like a man among boys because he's got size. He's got so much skill. He's a guy that I think is going to jump right into Toronto's lineup sooner rather than later. I know, Maple Leafs fans are pretty excited about him. And they've got another kid from Arizona playing up in Toronto that he can live with, that he's friends with, so that could work out really well on the pro level too. That right now is the biggest question for Gopher fans. They have at most 4 home games left. And fans are like, are we ever going to get to see these guys again? Or any of them going to come back for next year? So that's been fun. And, Cooley and Snuggerud came in with kind of their chemistry pre-developed because those two were on a line together for the U.S. under-18 team last year under Adam Nightingale before he went to Michigan State. So Bob Motzko kept those two together. Typical Bob Motzko style. He tried to break them up. He said, let's spread the wealth. And then he just realized these guys are too good together. And about 4 or 5 games into the season, he put Nyes on that line. And my, oh my, has it been exciting to see what they can do.
Well, despite the fact that Minnesota has clinched first place and Wisconsin looks like they have clinched the final spot in the Big Ten tournament. Everything else is literally a coin flip. Just 5 points separate Michigan in second place from Penn State all the way in sixth. Michigan State season, they are over. They finished. They're the only team not playing this weekend. What do you see shaking out in the last weekend of this regular season that, there's got to be some surprises that are aboard here?
Well, the one thing I'll say is when you look at the math, and I crunch the numbers with playoffstatus.com. I'm a devotee to that site. Ohio State has a less than 1% chance of finishing fifth. So Ohio State, for the most part, has home ice clinched. It would take a miraculous series of events for Ohio State to have to go on the road. That leaves 2 home ice spots up for grabs. Michigan, month and a half ago or so, we were looking at the Wolverines with all of that talent they've got. They were in sixth place in the Big Ten, and they have made quite a push. Last weekend kind of an anomaly, but I think they had won 7 games in a row before last weekend at Ohio State, where they went up with a tie and then a loss in the outdoor game played in Cleveland. So look out for the Wolverines. I mean, they're just such a dangerous team. Now, here's what I'll say about Michigan that would frustrate me if I was a fan. And here's something you can't control. They can't seem to get healthy this year. They just got Frank Nazar back. They went through all of that mess with Stephen Holtz being hospitalized, in a very, very serious situation back in November. He's back in the lineup. All of that seems to be coming together. And now all of a sudden Luke Hughes is out for, we don't know how long. And so they've got so many fun elements on that Michigan team. If they can put them all together, I think they can be a truly a national title contender. But just being able to stay healthy this year has been the big challenge for the Wolverines.
Jess, when we look at the postseason prospects of some of these teams, speaking specifically of the NCAA tournament, a 3 weeks ago, we were talking like maybe 5 teams from the Big Ten. Not looking so good for that right now. You've got Notre Dame right at 500 heading to Yost this weekend. You've got Michigan State, their regular season done. They're right at 500. Depending on how things shake out, at least Michigan State and maybe Notre Dame would have to win at least one Big Ten playoff series. Meanwhile, at Penn State, where Guy Gadowski readily admits that he picks an easier out-of-conference schedule, at least he admitted it to us, he's sub 500 in the league, but 19-12-1 overall, and Penn State sitting in a pretty good place. Not looking as good. Maybe 4 teams in from the Big Ten, but certainly not 5 or maybe even 6 like we thought.
Yeah, Michigan State has kind of hit a wall here, and maybe this was a team that was overachieving a little bit early in the season. Nice story under first-year coach Adam Nightingale, and I've got to credit Adam and Jared DeMichael, his staff, what they did last weekend, just getting their team ready to play hockey with the tragedy on the campus there at Michigan State. One of the cooler things I've seen all season is they go to Wisconsin Friday night, and a lot of the players had written the names of the 3 deceased students on their sticks, as if to say, Spartan strong, and we're playing for our classmates and all of this. And they went out and handled Wisconsin pretty handily. So good for him. But with that said, maybe a year too early to be talking about the Spartan resurgence. And keep in mind, this stat just blows me away. In the previous 9 seasons of Big Ten hockey, Michigan State has never won a playoff game. They are 0-9 years in the playoffs. So, all this kind of fun thought that they might get home ice and they might turn that around this year. It's not looking likely. They're in an unfortunate position too. And this is what happens when you have 7 teams in your conference. They get that bye weekend going into the playoffs, which nobody wants. And, the Gophers now will get a bye weekend after this weekend. They don't have to play the first round of the playoffs. Bob Motzko has been frank. He hates that. He hates having to sit around while everybody else is playing. He would much rather have the reward for winning the Big Ten be that you get a first round series against an 8th seeded team. But with 7 teams, that's just not happening right now. Notre Dame seems like a team to me that just has never really gotten on track this year. They've won some games. They've been competitive in some games, but typical with Jeff Jackson's teams, you talk about their defense and you talk about how well they lock things down. And I don't know that that's been totally the story this year. They've gotten good goaltending with Ryan Bischel, but maybe not great goaltending. And, it just seems like they're, again, as you say, they're a bubble team and are going to need to do some stuff here in the playoffs, I think, to get into the NCAAs.
More with the Rink Live's Jess Myers in a moment. USCHO Spotlight is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 6th and 8th at Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida.
All right, class, it's the NCAA Men's Frozen Four. Welcome to Fandom 101. Want to help your team rule the rink? Here's your assignment. Lesson 1, go big for every goal. 2, when you bring it, bring enough for the whole class. And 3, attendance is encouraged, but passion is mandatory. The NCAA Men's Frozen 4, April 6th and 8th at Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida. Buy your tickets today at ncaa.com/mfrozen4. Class dismissed.
We're back with the Rink Live's Jess Myers. Wisconsin makes the playoffs as everybody does in the league. What's the situation there? I know it seems to us looking at the league from the outside that this might have been a make or break year for Tony Granato.
Yeah, I talked to Tony a week and a half ago or so after they lost a Friday night game to the Gophers. I don't know how well I can read body language and things like that, but I talked to some folks afterwards and I said that almost seems like Tony is maybe resigned to his fate a little bit. I just think that he hasn't done enough consistently over his tenure as the Gophers, or excuse me, as the Badgers coach, for him to be kept around there. And you've seen in other sports at Wisconsin, there's not a lot of patience. They brought in what they thought was a dream football coach in Paul Christ, and he was gone just a couple of years later because of the perception that they were underachieving. So if you've got a potential revenue sport like the Badger hockey team playing in a 15,000 seat building like they are, and you're drawing 3,800 a game, that's just not acceptable there. And what really frustrated me, I guess, about watching this Wisconsin team a couple times this year is, not to be mean, but with a lot of teams, you can say, you know what, they don't score a lot of goals and they don't defend well, but they've got good goaltending. Or, they score a lot, but they can't keep the puck out of their own net. There's always something you can find. I couldn't find one thing that I could put my finger on with this Wisconsin team to say, okay, this is their strength. They just seem to be mediocre in a lot of levels, and that's reflected in their record this year, I would have to say.
And speaking of attendance and restless fans, it was getting that way at the end of the Don Lucia tenure with the Gophers, and even in the first couple of years with Bob Motzko. Has that completely turned around?
They've done a couple of good things. Number one, they've reinvigorated the fan base with winning. And that's weird to say because Don Lucia's teams weren't bad. They were in the NCAA tournament a lot of years. They were winning the Big Ten, but there was this perception that things had gotten stale for whatever reason, fairly or unfairly. 3M Arena at Mariucci wasn't the place to be. So there's a reinvigoration that way by hanging banners and going to the Frozen Four and some of that stuff. Also, another complaint of Gopher fans for a long time was prices had gotten too high. Now, the University of Minnesota has made a good effort to drop some ticket prices, make some more affordable areas in the rink so your casual fan can come to games. When you compared to, I think it was Ohio State, I was looking at, they charge $15 a ticket for any place in the building and parking is free. You just don't do that in Minneapolis. So they have made a good effort of that. They've gotten students back in the building. That's been one of the funnest things to watch. Is there was really kind of a lot of student apathy 3-4 years ago, and the student gates open before games, and there's a mad rush to get those seats right in the front row behind the goal. So that's been really fun to see. Bob Motzko has been very diplomatic. He said, Gopher fans never went anywhere. We just had to give them a reason to come back to the building.
Well, you mentioned it, Jess. Another home game guaranteed for the Gophers, and it will be a semifinal game by the time that they're playing. But it's a semifinal game and not a semifinal series. It's interesting in the Big Ten, you get the reward of the bye, but when you finally get to play, you have no room for error. Does that single elimination format, as somebody that covers the Gophers, that scare you a little bit?
Absolutely. And I'll go ahead and say this on record. Penn State should have won the semifinal game they played at Minnesota last year. I mean, they looked like a fresher team. You could see they had their legs. They gave Minnesota absolutely all they could handle. And if not for a late goal by Sammy Walker, I think Penn State is moving on to the Big Ten championship last year. And you saw it in talking to Guy Godowski after that game. He was upset. He knew his team had outplayed Minnesota in their own building and didn't get the rewards for it. So, again, Bob Motzko hates this. He hates having to take a weekend off, and especially this team, because These Gophers have been rusty after bye week, so he doesn't like that at all. He keeps railing on, get us an 8th team in this league. And, every time I go to Tempe, I think they should get an 8th team in the league as well. I've got one in mind. I don't think I need to say which one it is.
Yeah, I think Tempe alone says that. I was just about to ask you, think Arizona State has a future? Obviously, I don't have to ask. You do. You'd probably love to see it.
I just, I keep hearing the academic argument that Arizona State's academic standards or their level don't meet the Big Ten standards. I mean, I don't ever remember watching a game because they had a good biology program at whatever school that was.
Well, it's funny. We were talking to Mike Hastings last week, and he said, now when Arizona State calls about joining a league, they actually return the phone calls.
Well, and Mullet Arena has made a huge difference, obviously, for that program. Greg Powers, I was down there a couple of weeks ago, and he was quite open about it. He says we'd bring recruits in, we'd show them the school, we'd show them the training facilities, we'd show them the classrooms, we'd show them the palm trees on campus, and they'd say, "Where's the rink?" And I'd say, "Oh, the rink's not important. Don't worry about it." They made a point to not show prospective recruits where they would be playing. It was that unfortunate of a situation in the previous rink. Now they've got a rink that they'll show off to anybody. And Greg Powers points out, he said, we've had 5 recruits in this season. We got 4 of them. And the other one we lost to what he called a blue blood program. So I really think that's going to be an attractive program. And to me, the Big Ten argument is it just seems to fit being a member of the Pac-12, being in a big TV market in the Phoenix area, having a TV package. It seems like there's just a lot of natural fits there. No, it's not Notre Dame. No, it's not Johns Hopkins as far as like other affiliates they've made academically. But again, I'm not tuning in. I want to see their goalie. I don't care about their ag school.
One last one before I let you go, Jess. Player of the year in the Big Ten. It feels like it should be somewhere between Cooley, Snuggerud, and maybe Adam Fantilli. Fantilli in Big Ten play did not play as many games as the other guys, only 17 games played to date, but 29 points in those games. Is there a case to make for him, or does it have to be either probably Cooley or Snuggerud at this point?
I think this is what fascinates me about the Big Ten awards this year. Okay. You talk about those 3 guys for MVP, Snuggerud, Cooley, Nyes, and Fantilli. One of them's a sophomore. The other 3 are freshmen. So here to me is the bigger race in the Big Ten. How do you pick the freshman of the year in this conference? I mean, it just amazes me to think you've got Logan Cooley, Jimmy Snuggerud, and Adam Fantilli to choose from. It reminds me, and I've seen a lot of college hockey. 2006, covering the WCHA. The Rookie of the Year race was between 2 guys, one of them named Phil Kessel, one of them named TJ Oshie. They both turned out to be pretty good and, have hoisted a few Stanley Cups. So you're asking me who's going to win the MVP. I have no idea. I'll figure that out when I see the ballot and make my vote. But what a wealth of riches that they have in this conference this year.
Yeah, it does feel like the MVP vote will also be the Rookie of the Year vote as well. But yeah, Jess Myers, we always appreciate your time. We will. It's not too long, maybe a little over a month that we'll be talking to you live in person down in Tampa, Florida. We look forward to that every year. But enjoy this postseason run, and we'll see you in Tampa.
We've got about 20 inches of snow on the way here in Minnesota, so I might actually leave for Tampa today if that's all right. I'll just meet you guys there. Would that work out?
We wouldn't complain.
All right. Thanks, guys.
That's Jess Myers from the Rink Live. Jim, what an interesting league the Big Ten is this year. But Notre Dame and Michigan State, 2 teams that maybe a month ago seemed like they were in a position to make the postseason tournament. And that chance for both teams is tenuous at best right now.
Yeah, we talked about it a lot that, 6 teams in the NCAA field out of 7 would be just remarkable for the Big Ten. But the reality is you knew that as the season wore on and you had to play games within the conference, and their non-conference record, phenomenal as a league, the Big Ten. So that's why they have such strength. But you knew that things would kind of come to a head as non-conference play ended. You had to play within your conference, and teams were going to start beating other teams. And the 2 victims to that were Notre Dame and Michigan State. And I like what Jess said about Michigan State. They're a great team, and I think that they have a good future ahead of them. Their renovation to Munn was fantastically And Adam Nightingale has done a great job with that club. But I think that maybe they're a little bit early, and they're going to get there. I don't expect to see this team sitting in the bottom of the Big Ten as they have for so long. I would absolutely love to see them win a playoff game this year. Maybe it's not a series. Maybe it's just a quarterfinal round playoff game in the best of three. It's probably going to be on the road, the way I'm guessing the standings are going to shake out. But they're a good team. And then, Jeff Jackson's team, I think they just haven't shown the consistency to put wins together. They have not been sweeping a ton of weekends. They've been a 500 team because they're a 500 team. You win half your games, you lose half your games. And that just feels like the way this season is shaken out for the Irish. I think they're good. I think if they got to the tournament, they could win a game, maybe even get to a Frozen Four. I mean, I've seen Notre Dame teams that make it to the Frozen Four after having a decent but not stellar regular season. So they're right there on the bubble. They're actually on the inside of it right now. If they get in and go into the tournament, put a few wins together here, maybe get a couple this weekend, maybe advance to the semifinals in the Big Ten, I think they're a dangerous team.
Kind of the dark horse in the league for me is Ohio State. They've got the tiebreaker over Michigan, but while Michigan is hosting Notre Dame, Ohio State has to visit University of Minnesota this weekend. If there are splits in both of those, Ohio State has the leg up and are the number 2 seed. But how about what's going on there with Steve Rollick's team?
Well, we've been saying it for a couple of years now that for some reason, everybody underestimates the power of this team and how good they are. And if they start getting things going and they get on a run, you've got great coaching. Just start there. When you have a great head coach, that can take you an extra step. And I think that Steve Rollick, we've always looked at him as one of those really, really good head coaches, good to great even, just needs the opportunity at Destiny and he will seize it. I think they'll be a difficult out in the Big Ten tournament. And in the postseason, once you get to the NCAAs, they're going to get in. They're going to be a difficult out there as well.
Well, we'll watch it with great interest. This is the best time of year in college hockey for sure. USCHO Spotlight is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 6th and 8th at Amalie Arena in Tampa. Get your tickets now at ncaa.com/mfrozen4. You can find our podcast at uscho.com/podcasts or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. For Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger, and this has been USCHO Spotlight.